It's a Wall Street Journal exclusive report that came out again just over the weekend. And the headline is that the Pentagon sees giant cargo cranes as possible Chinese spying tools. What we've done is we've purchased these giant Chinese-made cranes that operate in American ports for they were on the cheap, they weren't as expensive, and now they believe that they may be Trojan horses that are spying and tracking and using sensors to know where everything that we're putting in, everything that we're importing in, and exporting into the United States. So they're well-made and inexpensive, which makes people wonder, why would the Chinese sell us such well-made cranes? And of course, we talk about they really focus on the importance of ports, not just their own, but tracking, I guess, what's going on in our own ports. Let me bring in Rick Grinnell, who's the former acting director of national intelligence and our senior advisor for foreign policy and national security. Rick, this report, I mean, it's pretty shocking and surprising that even a crane utilized could now be seen by our Pentagon as another spy tool from the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the good news. The good news is that we've got an arm of the United States government recognizing the importance of combating Chinese spying. I applaud that. We've had a problem of trying to get these agencies to understand the threat from China. Too many people in Washington try to say, look over there, Russia, 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 and Beijing applauds every time we do. It's important to say that Russia is a problem, but China is a crisis. And the more we can focus on what they're doing to utilize technology to come into the United States and spy, the better. Now, I don't want to talk about this program specifically, but let me just say that we were very public about our concerns with the Chinese company Huawei. And Huawei was all over Europe. I remember multiple conversations with Chancellor Merkel about combating this. Europeans were going for the cheap version of the technology. And we have a problem with this in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe. And I have to say, even Israel buying Huawei technology. We need to do a better job of combating Chinese spying. It's everywhere, and it's in their technology.
I think people remember Huawei as the first time the U.S. government said, "Hey, this is not a company we should be doing business with, and we need to take down their 5G sensors." I think that's where they got in. It wasn't so much their devices, which are popular in the developing world in places that don't have the same kind of economies that we do to afford $1,000 phones, smartphones, but they started to put in, they used our telecom systems to install their 5G system. Similar to this story, Rick, they would do it on the cheap, but it would work well. And then their back end is that they're using it to track. I mean, what they're saying here is that these cranes, what they really can track is any kind of like military equipment being sent in and out of the United States. That they've got a specific purpose about what they'd want to look for. It's not really for cars. It's not really for regular devices. It's to see where our military equipment is coming in and going out.
Look, you hit it on the head. It's the cheap version. It works. It's, a short-term solution. It's certainly not going to last that long. We know that is the criteria for all of these Chinese products that come into the United States. We see it constantly. It's a very cheap version that doesn't last that long. That's the challenge that our American diplomats overseas have had to try to convince these countries, is to say it's going to be cheap and it may or may not work all the time. We saw it with COVID. I have to tell you, with the PPE, it was a huge problem. Chinese tests that didn't work, the masks that were not quite up to snuff. And we really had a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, if people remember that their testing was never really accurate. We weren't able to rely on it. And people were trying to import the mask.
Yeah, you had to be careful where you're getting them from. And
yeah,
it feels like the past now, but it was not that long ago.
Yes, and so we've had Huawei, we've had TikTok, which a lot of government agencies now have gotten rid of, at least set off their phones. It's not illegal yet in the United States, but and if you have your own Wi-Fi that you pay for, you can use it with Wi-Fi. But a lot of states and the federal government have looked at now saying it's illegal to keep it on your phone while you're. I think most of that, if you have a government phone, you got to delete it. But then if you are like at a college campus and the state's banned it, or you work for the state, your phone cannot be utilized
on like the
Wi-Fi that they use.
Look, we do that here.
So then it brings to the question then, Rick, do we need to start looking at these more mundane kind of equipment like a crane? So it makes sense, I think, to people when they hear spying type devices when it
smartphone.
comes to 5G.
Yeah, you're
smartphones,
carrying around microphones and cameras on you at all times.
and your
It ma- it's
TikTok
easy.
terms of service that lets you see your keystrokes on
Yeah.
anything that you make. But when you think about cranes, it's kind of a new way of thinking that like anything that's coming out of China on a scale could be something utilized for bad, for something that would hurt our country.
I wish I could just go into all the examples that I'm thinking of right now. We're in dangerous territory when you're talking to a former DNI. I got to be very careful. But let me just say this overall. We must be vigilant about what China is bringing into this country, whether it's on our college campuses and our universities, whether it's through local government contracts. Gavin Newsom has been caught trying to do these deals on the cheap with China. I would just caution everyone when you're buying anything from Amazon. Amazon does a lousy job of filtering out the Chinese products. You have to understand these are cheap products, and many times they are very good at trying to spy on us. And I'm not suggesting that it's with every product, but it certainly exists more widespread than we know.
You know, that is, to me, I mean, I think it's just a new world to operate in for all of us to be that much more, especially people that run businesses and bring in, again, equipment, heavy equipment, and look at, say, okay, they're trying to get the best price. And oftentimes that is going to come out of places like China. But to maybe second guess and say, you know, maybe there's a better option, even if it's not a U.S. made company, but a better option from another country that I can trust. And I think it just, the whole way of thinking has to change for the business community and for all of us. Even when we're thinking about installing a new app on our phone, it's like, hey, I better check to see who's behind this app exactly. Rick, I also want to talk about this with CPAC in the news, because there's a lot of mis and disinformation, it felt like, about that. Because you got CPAC is at this huge hotel in outside Washington, D.C. President Trump spoke, and I know he also did a side of it for his campaign, which was packed. So the media loved just showing pictures saying, oh, there's no one here, there's no one there. You were actually there. I've been to a lot of CPACs before. The reason CPAC is at the new locations because they outgrew any of the locations in Washington, D.C., because the rooms just could not hold enough people. What was it actually like? Because the media is trying to spin it off as, see, this part of the movement is dead.
Look, CPAC has always been the really strong grassroots activists, and it was no different this time. I felt like there was a lot of grassroots people who were coming up with a lot of great ideas. So you saw lots of different booths about ideas. CPAC is a place where lots of ideas, new ideas, are generated, and I love that part of it. I like walking through the booths and seeing what conservatives are thinking are the issues of tomorrow. I think that there was a lot of college kids. There's a lot of activists that were there. That room is so ginormous that even if that room is half filled or a quarter filled, you still have hundreds of people there. And I think that it was really well attended. It was jammed in the hallways. You couldn't walk through. I thought it was a fantastic CPAC. I think everybody came that was thinking of running for president, but DeSantis. For some reason, he didn't show up, but everybody else was there. And there was a good debate. This whole idea that CPAC has turned into Trump. I think Trump is the leader of the party. He's the most popular person in the party, so of course he has the majority. But there were a lot of other voices and ideas that were there. Vivek was there, Mike Pompeo was there, Nikki Haley was there. There were a lot of other voices, and I think the media just likes to, try to pretend like.
They've always gone after CPAC. I feel like I've known a lot of different folks, whether it's the Slaps, my buddy Greg Keller, different people that have run it, and it's always been the media just. And I think it's part of what you said, Rick. It's because young people. And I think they saw turning points, the same reason that they go after the turning point and try to silence a bunch of, right-wing radical kids, is that when young people are involved in something, they realize that down the road that's going to have a major political impact.
Yeah, I will say this. I think that if you are wanting to be an elected official, if you're wanting to be a leader within the conservative movement, you have to go to CPAC, because those are your people who are the mouthpieces, and you try out issues. And if they receive it, then it can go somewhere. I think it's a perfect opportunity to try out new ideas. People absolutely have to go.
Yeah, Rick. No, I think that's a good point you made about the opportunity to just talk through. It's like talking to friends and family. but it's your base activists who are going to get your message out through all of their worlds that they've got contacts with. But it was interesting to see your point, because I wasn't there this time. I was just watching the media spin, which is always interesting to see. And of course, they come up with a new way every time to say CPAC doesn't matter, yet all these people who are pretty high profile go to CPAC.
All showing up.
Yeah. Rick, as always, we appreciate it.